here. I think I'm live. I haven't been on video for a while, but I am back. I was inspired to do a video just through some realizations that I've had through my own work. I'm always doing my own personal work as well as helping clients through theirs. And I wanted to share this idea of when we don't heal our own stuff, we pass it on to our kids. And I've had this awareness for a long time, but I often got it confused with passing on exactly what you hadn't healed, right? And sometimes this is the case. So say, for example, you have a really unhealthy body image and you are displaying those kind of, hating your body, dieting, trying to change the way your body looks, those kind of things outwardly, then yes, you may pass your poor body image directly onto your kids. So there are things that can kind of just be passed down as they are, right? But there's also this deeper thing that can be passed down. So the example that I want to use is, say, for example, you have a father who, as a child, was called dumb or was, outshined by a smarter sibling, or just never felt good enough. And so his inner child wound is that he needs to prove himself. And the way that he does that is through throwing himself into work. This is not my personal life example. I'm just using this as an example. So in that instance, as a child, you have a father who is emotionally absent, possibly even physically absent, because he is trying to fulfill his own inner child's need to prove himself, to prove that he is good enough, to prove that he is smart enough, to get the things that he wanted as a child, that he needed and craved as a child, but didn't receive. And so while he's off trying to fill that need for himself, he's not necessarily passing on to you as the child this need to prove yourself and feel good enough and those kind of things. That may be what you get from that. But what you actually might get from that is an inner child wound of not being heard, not being seen, not being important enough to spend time with. And so his inner child wound isn't directly passed on to you necessarily, but the wounding that you get from his hurt, his wound that he hasn't healed, is about what you make that situation mean. So as a child, we don't have the cognitive ability to look at dad working his ass off, trying to prove himself in the world. We don't look at that and go, oh wow, dad really needs to prove himself and this has nothing to do with me. We look at that as, dad's never here, dad's not here for me, I'm not important enough, work's more important to dad. And so this idea that we pass on our inner child wounds to our children and to those around us, it's not just this direct lineage of my parent has this wound, so I have the same one. It can be my parent, whoever it is in your life, has this wound in their life, in their inner child self that they haven't healed. And in their quest to meet that need for themselves, probably unconsciously, they don't usually realize what they're doing. In their quest to meet that need for themselves, in their quest to cover up that part of themselves that their inner child needs, I experienced this from them and I made that mean X, Y, and Z. And X, Y, and Z created a wound in me that now means I am constantly striving to achieve or fill this need that I have in myself. So the reason that a lot of my clients will come to me and start working with the inner child is because they don't want to pass this stuff on to their kids. Obviously, they don't want to experience it themselves because it doesn't feel nice to have those unmet needs, those wounds, those things that they're still craving and not achieving, not receiving, not giving themselves. But I just wanted to make that distinction that it's not always that you get the wound that your parent has because they haven't healed it. It can be that their way of trying to compensate for that wound means that you experience a certain way of living, a certain level of connection or lack of connection from them, whatever it is. And whatever you make that mean is what your wound becomes. When I'm talking about wounding, it's really just a term that we use to explain something that hasn't been healed. So as a child, we have all these needs and things that we need to feel safe, to feel secure, to feel loved, to feel good enough. And when those needs aren't met, they can create a wound. And oftentimes when that wound is not addressed, sometimes it's not even recognized as being there. When that's not recognized, healed, worked on, then we can spend our whole adult lives trying to achieve that need, trying to fill that void, trying to satisfy that craving that our inner child has. Let me give you some examples. So say you didn't feel heard as a child. So when I talk about parent stuff, it's never that your parents didn't do this, your parents didn't do that. It's I didn't feel heard. So it's not your parents didn't listen to you, because that may not be the case. It may be, it may not be. But whatever it made you mean, whatever you made it mean is what's true for you. So if you didn't feel heard as a child, you might spend your whole adult life striving to be heard by other people. You might talk over other people. You might, prioritize friendships over family because you feel heard by your friends. You might, prioritize things that make you feel heard, even if they're not actually aligned with your values, aligned with what is most important to you. So we can kind of spend our whole lives trying to satisfy this need that we didn't have met as a child, trying to fill this void that our inner child still has, trying to kind of put a band-aid over this wound. So instead of actually healing it, working through that, inner child wound that you didn't feel heard, you kind of doing everything you can to make other people hear you, because that just puts a temporary band-aid on it and it makes you feel a little bit better. It doesn't actually fix the wound, and it doesn't change the fact that it's there, but it's just this little quick fix. Makes you feel better in the moment. Other examples, like the example of the dad I used, if you felt like you weren't good enough, you can spend your whole life trying to prove yourself to people who aren't actually the most important in your life. But to those around you, it can seem like however you're trying to prove yourself, say you use work as an outlet, to prove yourself, all you're doing in that moment is trying to fill that void that your inner child needs filled, trying to heal that part of your inner child that feels not good enough, trying to prove to yourself and to everyone else that you are good enough. And so while you're busy over here, focused on work or whatever it is, trying to fill that void, trying to meet that need, trying to satisfy that craving of feeling good enough, of being recognized, then you may be ignoring other parts of your life that don't necessarily give you that quick fix, but that are actually really important to you. So the reason that it's so important that we heal these inner child wounds is so that we're not hurting other people in the process of us trying to fill them, to meet that craving, to fill the void. And the healing process really does look like giving that to yourself. So if you didn't feel heard as a child, hearing yourself, like honouring your needs, taking care of yourself, listening to what you need moment to moment and giving that to yourself as best you can. And often the other side of this is forgiving your parents. And this is, again, not about blaming them, but it's about looking from your adult perspective, from the cognitive ability that you have now to look at this from an kind of outside perspective in a way that you weren't able to as a child, and see that they were just doing the best they can. You may even be able to see some of their wounding patterns and why they treated you that way, why it came across that way, why you felt that way, because they may have been striving to fill their own wounds, heal their own wounds, fill their own voids, give themselves what they didn't have as a child. And so, yeah, the process for you healing your own inner child wounds is giving yourself what you needed as a child. So if you didn't feel loved as a child, loving yourself now, love yourself unconditionally. If you didn't feel unconditionally loved as a child, the only way you can heal that wound is by loving yourself unconditionally now. It's the only way. Striving to get that unconditional love from your parents now is not going to be the solution. It's likely that even if they were able to give that to you now, it still wouldn't heal that part of you because it needs to come from you. There's a term used, I think I've mentioned it before. It's in my free guide. If you haven't downloaded that yet, I can drop the link in the comments. The term is reparenting, and basically it's this idea that you still have that inner child part of you inside, but you are now an adult that can take care of that inner child. So you are no longer searching for other adults to give that inner child what it needs, but you're stepping into that adult role, that parent role within yourself, and giving your inner child what it needs. So this can be done through, visualization is a really powerful tool to do this, to actually just imagine yourself as a younger you, imagine you as the adult there with them, and communicate that to them. You're safe, you're loved, I love you unconditionally. There's nothing wrong with you. Have that conversation with your inner child and give that inner child what it needs most, coming from you as the adult, as the now parent stepping in to give that child what it needs. So when you're able to do this work, and there's so many other ways that we can do this, but when you're able to recognize what your inner child needs and needed back then and still is craving to this day, then you can start to do the healing work on that wound, so that you are not passing on either that direct wound, or through your actions in trying to soothe that wound, passing on other wounds to your children, to anyone around you. So I just wanted to share my little insight on that, and how it can be passed down. And if you are resonating with this, if you may kind of realize as I'm talking what your inner child wound might be. They're very varied. I've only mentioned a few examples, but it really can be anything that you feel like you didn't receive as a child. So yeah, you may have an idea of what that might be for you, and I would encourage you to just take a moment after this video and check in with how you can give that to yourself now, how you can soothe that need, that desire now for yourself, and kind of reparent yourself in that situation. Or you may be watching this and think, yeah, I probably got some wounds, but I have no idea what they are. And if that's where you're at, that's completely fine as well. If you're watching this and you feel ready to do the work, to really dig into not only the inner child, but to all kinds of subconscious patterns that are keeping you where you are, keeping you stuck, holding you back, and perhaps driving your behavior in a direction that you don't want to be driven. That's what I'm here for. That's what I do. Reach out and we can have a chat about that. But yeah, I'd really encourage you, if you're resonating with this, to just check in with your inner child, and have a think about what needs you had as a child that may not have been met in the way that you needed them to, and how those may be affecting you as an adult now. And again, it's never about blame. It's just about recognizing how you interpreted things, what you made things mean, and also recognizing that we are all human. Being a parent doesn't make you perfect. And we are all just trying to do our best. And so your parents did your best with however they did their best with what they knew at the time. And So yeah, it's definitely not about blaming, but just about recognizing, and also recognizing that you are an adult now and you have the ability to step in and give your inner child what you needed most as a child, but also what your inner child is still craving to this day, and to kind of soothe that wound for yourself and for others. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions, always pop them in the comment box below, and I will leave a link for that free guide that I mentioned. It's really just an overview if you're new to personal development, if you're kind of just getting started with this and you're not sure about some of the terms that are being used, and you just want a guide to kind of explain everything from a foundational level, then that's for you. You don't need your email or anything. It's literally just a website and you download it straight from there. So yeah, I'll pop the link in the comments, and if you have any questions about the video or the guide, you can leave a comment or send me a message, and yeah, we can chat about it. And if you are feeling ready to do the work to delve deeper into the inner child and all of the subconscious stuff that's going on in there, then I'm here. You know where to find me. Send me a message and we can chat about that. Hope you're having a lovely Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday. I'll chat to you soon. Bye.